I'm David from Levika Photography, and today I'm going to show you guys how to do product photography the way that I do it. Over the years, things have changed in the industry as far as technology goes. And, 5-10 years ago, I was using strobes for doing product photography. And I'm kind of done with this nowadays. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm done with the strobe. It just means that now that we have so many lighting options, you really need to use the right lighting for the right project. Doing product photography can be done very simply with just regular light bulbs. I use LED lights, of course. I don't use regular bulbs anymore or anything like that, or CFLs. It's all LED. But I'm going to show you today how to do a simple 2-light setup. But you can do this at home very easily with just 2 bulbs. Nobody wants to use strobes for doing this type of work anymore simply because WYSIWAG, what you see is what you get. You don't get that with a strobe. Now, even though this strobe has a modeling light, it doesn't have the modeling light at the same power as the light output coming from the strobe. So you really can't tell how much light you're throwing into something until after you've taken the shot. Now, there are times when you might want to use a strobe for something, but for product photography, your objects aren't moving at all. So you can do as long of an exposure as you want, meaning you can use as little light as you need. So that's what makes this really easy. And I'm going to show you how to float a product with no shadows. I've just developed this technique over the years to where I can do it on a high production level. And when I do it, I shoot for, this is one of my clients, Wish Body Products. So I've got a matte black label against a high gloss black bottle. And then I've got these shiny tubes this is body butter, so it's kind of like a lotion. So I'm going to show you a 2-step light setup, how to avoid a strobe, and then I'm going to show you my setup as far as how I do stuff. And this is really easy. All you need is a white wall. So in the studio, I don't actually have a white wall, so I have to use a white backdrop today. A white wall is perfect. It can be dirty, it doesn't really matter because it can be out of focus. The whole point of this and using white backdrops and white walls is that it gives you a clean white background, but in order to be clean, it has to be far away from your product. In this setup right here, the way I've got my stool and my table set up, I am about 5 to 6 feet away from my backdrop. So that means my product's going to be 6 feet away. The depth of field is only going to be as deep as the product, so that means the wall is going to be out of focus. That's why it doesn't matter if the wall has nail holes in it or if it's got marks on it. Most likely it'll all be blurred out anyway. But for a 2-bulb setup, I love using these. And these are just the most basic light modifiers that you can possibly get. It's just a really simple setup. It's just a bendy head. You can put umbrellas in here. It has a little mount for umbrellas to go through if you want to diffuse it a little bit. But in this case, this is just going to illuminate our white backdrop. This will make the whole background almost pure white. This light will be brighter than our foreground lights. And that's what's going to make the background blow out. But you can only go to a certain point before you have problems. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to start with this black bottle because these things are the hardest things to shoot. So I'm going to go ahead and place this on the table. Now, if you look at the angle of the camera, I'm just shooting down on the bottle a little bit. And the reason why is if you shoot a product straight on, it doesn't have any dimension to it at all. To make a product look nice, you want to give it some depth, and so you want to shoot just down on it a little bit or up on it a little bit, but typically this is the best view. In order to get it shadow free, I'm shooting on the glass. And this is the trick because I've got the light pointing down and it's illuminating from halfway up the wall all the way to the floor, and so therefore I don't have any shadows coming underneath this because it's seeing light from under the glass. It's coming up. So this makes it completely shadow free. This glass is tempered so it can hold some weight. I'm going to go ahead and turn this light sideways, and I'm going to mount it just up over the camera here. And the whole thing with product photography is that you want your light to be straight on. And you can tell right now it's totally straight on. I'm using the Leala 100mm macro lens, and I'm focusing in on my product, and the lens is wide open. And so what I'm going to do is stop down to the f-stop that I want to work at, and in this case, for this product, it's going to be f11. Now you can see right here the band of the glass in the background, so that's already showing up. This is very easy to get rid of. So it just takes adjusting your lighting. Now the light that goes on the background is going to be brighter than what's on the foreground if you're trying to delete the background. We don't want to have to edit this photo, is basically what I'm trying to get to. You're always going to have to do a little bit of editing, but when it comes to high volume product photography, if a client brings you 150 products and they want it done that day, you don't want to spend more than 20 seconds editing a photo. So that's what we're going to try to avoid. My shutter speed is going to be determined by my actual metering. So I want to be somewhere between like 1.3 and 2 stops overexposed. And typically when I'm shooting product, I try to go for about 1.3. To me, this always seems about right. Because the metering is metering, I have it on matrix, so it's metering the whole scene. If you're just spot metering the product, it's a little different, but I prefer to meter the whole scene so I can blow the background out. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and turn down my main light here, and I'm going to bring it way down. And what that's going to allow me to do is bring my exposure up, and now you're going to start to see the background disappear. Now right now I've got some reflection problems that I'm going to have to deal with. Like you can see my monitor right there in the bottle. The actual monitor that you're seeing this on is right there. And then this reflection right here is my main light. And then this tiny dot over here is my background light. When you're shooting bottles, all this stuff has a tendency to show up. So we need to remove these glares. So I'm just going to remove these glares with some crap that I'm finding around the studio. I'm going to use these cases. And so these are my flashpoint cases. And let me just show you, if I shove one up the side, my monitor reflection is now gone. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, now you have to edit out those cases. Well, no, I don't, because when I'm shooting product, I crop it square when I'm done. So as long as I can see that this is kind of in the square area, I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with this other case. We'll put it about there. And you'll notice now, spotlight's gone. All that reflection's gone. I just have my center. I'm going to go ahead and bridge this. And the reason why I'm bridging it is to bring down some of this glare on the top. And now what I'm going to do is take a photo. Fail! And now I'm back at f11 again. Let's try this one more time. And this is what I'm getting. So this is my final photo. This is almost where we want to be. So it's pretty darn close. So at this point, I'm going to show you guys my biggest secret of what I do. I've talked about this in other videos before, but I've never really fully explained it. So if you look at this panel, and I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I'm going to swing it around here. You can see that there's film on this panel. So what this film is linear polarizing film. This is Roscoe film. So this stuff is really expensive and it's supposed to be light accurate, but you can see this has linear polarizing film on it as well. This is just a teaching aid that I got off of Amazon, which is actually pretty good film. You can put this light together, and now the light itself is 26 bucks. So you have to buy the battery. That's probably another 15. And this is an NP style battery. But then this linear polarizing film, you put this on here, And if you're using multiple lights, you want that film to go all the same direction on all your lights. Otherwise, it's not going to work correctly. But you put it on in one direction, and it'll make sense if you get a sheet of film, like let's say if this glass table was a sheet of film, and I was cutting it up for these lights, I would cut it up like that, and then stick them on there in that direction. That way they all have the same linear polarizing going the same direction, because what this is like little tiny window blinds on a microscopic level. Now, what this does is when you use a circular polarizer, you'll see that I'm taking it completely out. You can't see my forward light in there anymore. It's pretty much gone. There's like one little tiny pinhole speck that's showing up there. So now when I take a photo, this is what I'm getting off the camera. And right now I can tell you I've got a few little settings that I need to change on here. My background light right now is actually too bright. So that's why this looks a little cloudy. But we'll fix this. But the whole thing that I wanted to show you is like there's almost zero glare coming in at this point. So now we're going to get this thing glare free by really tightening this up. So what I'm going to do is just move my main light back a little bit, my background light. So that way it's not quite as overpowering. And just by moving that light, that should calm it down quite a bit. So if you start to see your product get clouded over to where it looks really low contrast, it's because the background light is just too bright. And it's reflecting back into the camera a little bit. And here you go. That's a lot crisper. Let's switch product. So this one is the Wish Body Butter. And this is the same material that you'd find in like a toothpaste tube, I guess is the best way to describe it. It's basically a high gloss plastic. If you're trying to use a regular light on this, the biggest problem is no matter where you move it, you're going to get glare. So you're going to have to edit the photo if you want to get the glare out. And that's why I don't like using regular lighting. I prefer polarized, because then I can have my lighting straight on. And this is really kind of crucial, because you see over here, if you move your light around to one side or the other, it creates more of a shadow on this side if the light's over here. And if you go to the other side, you're creating more of a shadow on that side. So that's what we want to avoid. So basically, I can use this little guy straight on. And because I have my polarizer set up, I can just suck that glare right out of there. And then I've got a nice even balance around the whole thing. And now we still have our reflection from the screen a little bit on the side. So I'm going to put a little bit of black, but I'm going to put it farther away. The one thing that you have to understand about foam core is if you use black or white or anything that's close to the object, if the object is got any kind of a gloss surface to it, it's going to reflect back what you put into it. So the closer I put something black to the object, the more I'm going to get a black edge around it. And a lot of times I do this intentionally, because if I'm shooting like a white bottle and you want to give it more depth, make it look more round, then you use black material on the sides to close it in. That reflects back into it and it makes more sense. Just to show you on this bulb really quick before we shoot this one, I'll show you on this bulb so it makes more sense. But the closer we get to it, you see how this side is getting darker all of a sudden. And you can control what that reflects. So if I move that away, you can see it's got a bright edge. If I bring it in, it creates more depth. The more I pull it away, the softer it gets. It's just like a light because it's bouncing ambient light into it and then away from it. So if it's white, then it has other characteristics and it actually flattens it out. So if I just hold this down, I don't know if you can see it over there, but it completely flattens it out. And so That's the difference between using two materials on each side. But in this case, we're going to shoot this bottle. I'm going to put it right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just bring this in just to block out the monitor. All right. This little shadow. So this happens because the polarizer is not matching the glass glare, if that makes sense. Because our light's polarized, we're diffusing the polarizer for the light. Now, if I rotated the light, I could probably get it to match up to where when I rolled this over, it would also eliminate the glare that's on the glass. But in this case, they're opposing each other, so we're getting glare on the glass. Now, if I were to roll my polarizer around, you can see I can eliminate that glare completely. But now I've got the glare of the glass coming up in the back, and that's the red line that goes across it. So I don't want any glare on the product. This is really easy to fix. I'll show you how to do this in RAW. Editing this RAW file in Adobe Camera Raw is really pretty easy. So I'm just dragging this into Photoshop, and basically the first thing you want to see is this highlight clipping warning turned on. This is the red that you're seeing. So if I turn that off, this is what we're getting. Turning it on, this lets me know what isn't pure white. So from here I can just use the radio filter, and I'm going to go in and turn this up to 65 is good enough. So all I have to do is select the areas where I want to wipe out the white that's around it to make sure that it's pure white. Really easy to do. Then from here I can go in and basically crop it square. And now I need to make some minor adjustments. Currently this setting is for shooting color accurate artwork in the studio. So for products it's a little different. So I'm just going to zero out these really quick, and then we'll start over from here. All right, here we go. So our whites, we're going to crank up to about there. Now, this is pretty much what I get when I pull it in, fairly accurate. My yellows are a little bit off, so what I need to do is go in and just saturate my yellows. That actually looks more like the bottle now. And then go back to this main screen, and I'm going to give it just a little bit more contrast, and I am going to pump up my blacks. And that's it. So now, once we open this, this is the image that we're getting. And so from here, I can just sharpen it and be done with it. We've covered two of the most common issues. Now we're going to show you how to shoot a box. So this is the Spider X Elite from Datacolor. And they sent this to me to review, which I am going to do for you guys. I actually really like it. Typically when it comes to boxes, I don't shoot the product with the light straight on. I shoot it to the side that the product is turned. So the light is just off to the side. And what that does is that allows me to evenly illuminate the box. Now, another way to deal with this is to use two lights. And you can use one for the forward panel and one for the side, and that's typically what I do. But in this case, just showing you guys the super simple light setup, this is how we're doing it. So I've got this set up to give us some dimensions. So now I got to make that background blow out again. And the other problem I have is the top. So if you see the top of the box, it's just gone. There's nothing there. So this is where foam core comes in handy. And you'll notice that when I drop this down, if I get it right over the top of this, and I don't shadow my light, I can bring the top of that box back. And white foam core sounds like it would do the opposite, but it actually makes everything illuminate pretty evenly. Now, when it comes to the focal length of the lens, it just depends on the size of the product that you're dealing with. So in this case, all my products are under a foot tall, so I need to use more of a telephoto lens. So I'm using the Leica 100mm macro. Now you can get away with using an 85mm for this as well. But typically when I shoot products that are bigger than a foot, then I'll use the 50mm lens. And here's our final product. I'm going to show you guys a real basic 2-light setup that you can do at home just to kind of practice this without the polarizing filtration on the lights. These are just 2 EcoSmart light bulbs, and this is really simple. The only thing is, I really wish I had another one of these fixtures here that I just showed you. I don't, so what I'm using is this. It's just a lamp fixture cord with a socket on it from IKEA. But basically I'm going to use this to illuminate my background, and I'm just pointing the light at the wall. Now the key to this, and actually this is a great way to show you right now. The key to this, now that you can see it in live view, is the closer I get with my little bulb to my object, you'll see it's blowing out. In the monitor right there, it's just going crazy. So as I go back, and I can move the light around to figure out exactly where I want it to be, and I have to illuminate 3 sides of this. So I'm going to come in at a 30-degree angle from over here, and now I got to raise this light up to where we got just about the perfect angle where everything seems to be illuminated. And the farther back I go with this light, I'm dimming my product, but not changing the background. So now, when I bring my exposure up, my background is almost blown out. And I can actually pull this back even more. So bring this light stand all the way up. And you'll notice that my main light, my key light's now about 8 feet away. Pretty far away. But it's giving me almost the same concept as before, and I still have the polarizer on my lens. So I'm able to reduce the top glare of the box. Now, we have to talk about depth of field again. So when you're shooting product, the most important thing besides the lighting is the depth of field. But I'm at f2.8, and you'll notice that this corner over here on my box is perfectly sharp, but down here it's faded out. It's really important to figure out where everything is in focus. The closer the lens is to your product, the increased depth of field you need to get it sharp. But typically the sweet spot of a lens, especially the Leica lens, is f8 or f11, somewhere around there. Mirrorless lenses are usually somewhere between f5.6 and f11, just in general. So anyway, I like to shoot at f11 most of the time. The closer I get into the product, I go down to f16. If I'm doing very small products, let's say I'm doing something that's the size of this cap right here. This I would have to shoot at f22 no matter what, just to get the entire depth of field in. So once you have everything in focus and your depth of field is set correctly, that's when you start working with your lighting. But the lighting is hands down one of the most important things. And just like the camera and the depth of field, the lighting reacts the same way. That's why if we're pulling our key light all the way back, we're getting it farther away to where it's not illuminating the box as much. That's the same as diffusing it. Now I can do the same thing by bringing this light closer to my product. So these are diffusion socks, and basically these go over can lights like the 600 BM where I just tossed it. This is actually what it's designed for, is this slides over the end of the can, but these can go over light bulbs. So this light bulb, you know, this thing is 13 watts. It doesn't generate heat like a traditional light bulb. Because it's not hot, I can completely diffuse it with this little diffuser. And this basically turns my light down quite a bit. So from here, I can now change my setup. And now, this is what I want you guys to see. This is kind of critical because a lot of people get hesitant about shooting white on white. The box is white, the background's white. If I shoot this right now, all I have to do is select the background in Photoshop and delete it to get these lines out. Or just do a little slight adjustment in RAW and that'll be gone. The whole point is my white is still white, and even if you're shooting a little darker, in editing, once the background's gone, you can bring that product up just by brightening it and it'll look what it's supposed to look like. But I mean, right now, this is pretty much true to life. So that actually looks pretty good. And at this point, if I just go back to using my foam core again, and I come in, I can completely darken the top of that. And I used to be terrified of shooting white on white because my background and my foreground was all the same. So then you had to create a clipping path around your object to be able to knock out the background. At this point, this is how much editing it takes to actually do this photo. You can see I've got highlight clipping turned on again, and we're almost all the way to white. So all I have to do in here is just select the sides to make sure that that's where we're at. And then draw a square and straighten it a little bit, probably about there. And then from here, contrast a little bit more, and then bring the shadows down. And that's probably, oh yeah, and pull up the saturation. That's probably all I need to do to it. Now when it comes to white boxes, a lot of times I'll use the color picker and just click inside the box somewhere to make sure that it's neutral where it's supposed to be. And then my reds, I want to punch up my reds a little bit more, so I'll just go ahead and saturate those to make that really stand out. And now when I open this image, this is what I get. And so the only thing I have to do editing wise to this is go in and clean up this little dot right here. So there you go. That's it. That is how you can do the most simplistic, easy to do, blowout, knockout product photography. Now the whole point of this exercise is to show you how to do it fast and efficiently and think differently. When you're doing product photography, people want volume and they don't want to pay a lot. So when I'm doing product photography for Wish, this stuff, when I'm doing them, I charge them about $10 a photo. And that doesn't sound like very much, and it sounds like you wouldn't be able to make any money that way. But because I don't have to edit, and my editing time is down to about 20 seconds per photo, so if you think about it, my shooting time plus editing time, you're now pushing 2 minutes. That means that you can do 30 products in an hour. So think about that. 30 times 10. That's 300 an hour. So when you think about that kind of volume, that client comes back over and over and over again. That is how you build relationships with your clients, because you're fast, you're efficient, you get work done. That's what people like. That's how you make money. If you're worried about doing clipping paths around all your objects and stuff like that, it can be difficult. So one of these days I'll touch on having to shoot bigger products on white backdrops and showing you how to not eliminate the shadows, but reduce them to where you can pretty much knock them out really easily. But we'll address that in another video because this is getting way too long. But before I end this video, I also want to remind you guys that I have a second channel, and it's called Davin's Random. The link's in the description. It's the crap I do when I'm not doing photography. And right now there's a lot of Porsche 928 stuff on there. The very first video, I got my Porsche 928 from a con artist. I really recommend that you guys watch that video. I think you'd be highly entertained by it. But please subscribe to that channel if you want to help me out, because the sooner I get that monetized, the better off I am. In this economy, we don't know what's going on. I am technically still working, but only 1 day a week. And it's only pick up and drop off product photography. So today I'm actually doing some product later on. I hope you guys like this video. All of the links to all these products that I'm talking about are in the description. Leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel and my other one for more information like this. I'll talk to you guys later.